Oh, hi! This week, I'm gonna show you how I did these little thummy holes for another nice long sleeve sweatshirt that I made myself. I made another version of this pattern in last week's video, so if you want less low energy and more in-depth put together of the actual sweatshirt itself, might I recommend that? I am dealing with a very intense migraine and I would be asleep right now if I didn't have to get this done, and also that was a thing my body would let me do. But alas, we are here. At least I now have a good sense of accomplishment for the day and a cozy ass sweatshirt to wear now, so things could be worse. But hopefully this will help motivate you to make a thing. I desperately need some just plain basic tops for my wardrobe and some cozier weather now that we're into fall. This is just one of my favorite colors, so I'm feeling very good in this right now and it's so comfortable. Pattern I started with was Tilly and the Buttons Stella hoodie, but I got rid of the hood, swapped it out for a more open neck with the collar band. I talk about that in the other video if you want to see how all that goes together. But yeah, this is based off a hoodie pattern, but I've done some tweaks. And obviously the base garment doesn't have to have any of this. The only thing I would make sure you do whenever you're cutting out whatever you're adding cuffs to that you want little thummy holes in is to make sure they're extra long. Things are never long for my very long dangly arms, so I tend to double the length just to start with anyways, but especially if you want to be able to pull them up enough to do this, just make a point to lengthen them. I doubled up the fabric by folding it over and then cut on the fold, so it doubled the height. I wanted it taller, not wider. So I assembled the sweatshirt as basic as it goes, meaning shoulder seams went together first. I made the neckband piece into a loop and then folded it in half, basted it, then attached it. I really like the fit of this neckline because I feel like a lot of things I have kind of come up pretty close, and cutting the neckline off certainly is an option, but I feel like I can only do that to so many of my tops. We're just starting out with a wider neckband seems to be a good option for me. Then I attached the sleeves to the arm side. I like attaching sleeves when the top is still open before the side seams are attached, because then you're not trying to fit a tube into a hole. You just have two flat curves, that feels like an oxymoron, to fit into each other. I just have an easier time doing it. Oh, look who wanted to come snuggle. Even he knows how cozy this sweatshirt is. Hi. He never gives me kisses. Also, little side note as far as arm size go, every time I read that word or hear it, it just makes me think of a tiny Grim Reaper that's just like really into armpits. You're welcome for that mental image. If I could draw what that picture looks like in my own head, I'd probably get it tattooed with how many times I think about it and how many garments with arm size I put together. Anyway, so once the sleeve was sewn onto the shoulder seam, I was able to fold the whole thing in half and sew from the wrist to the armpit all the way down the side seam in one fell swoop. Then I hemmed the bottom. I like to either serge or leave the bottom free. If it's a knit, it doesn't really matter. Either way, I fold it up once, baste that down, and then I fold it up a second time. I just get a cleaner go than trying to do both folds at once. Yes, it's an extra step, but worth it for the lack of headache for me later. This went together very quickly, and I know that's the case for like basic tops, but I never make just basic tops, so I forget how quickly they assemble. But this is good because I have 3 others that I want to make. The fabric is right there whispering to me to be made into something, and this is all I want to do with it. So like, I can make that happen. I can make myself some quick clothes. I don't have to do something unique and interesting to each one. I can just make some long sleeve shirts. It's okay. That's an acceptable use of my time, I think. Anyways, we've got everything done except adding the cuffs. So here are my extra tall cuff pieces. I'm just double checking that the stretch is going across from left to right. Then I folded the left edge over to the right edge, so I had a nice tall tube. I wanted to find the midpoint of the height of the tube, so I folded that down just to put a pin in it. Oh, did I bonk your snoot? Oh, I'm sorry. Once I had that midpoint marked, I figure I only needed about an inch for this part to go above. I might actually even shorten that for the next one because this is more than enough fabric. I just didn't want too much strain to be on a very tiny 3 stitches long section, you know? It's gonna get a lot of wear right there, so I wanted to make it durable. So then I marked a pin 1 inch either side of that center mark, because remember this is getting folded over. So if I wanted 1 inch on the total cuff, I had to do 2 inches. You get it. You're all probably better at math than I am. Though, you know, I used to be good at math. I feel like I used to be good at a lot of things. But there's also stuff I never thought I could do that I can do now. So let's not be too hard on ourselves, huh? That's both me telling you and myself. So once I had those pins marked, I also wanted to figure out how big of a gap I needed for my thumb. I only did 1 inch. I do think the next one I'm gonna make, I'll make the thumb hole bigger by encroaching on the 2 inches I stitched up here. So basically I would like move the top of the thumb hole up maybe a whole nother 1/2 inch. So I make the thumb hole bigger and make this part smaller. But that bottom end point would be the same. But you can adjust this however you want. I'd recommend doing some test cuffs to see like how you like your fit. And I have very narrow fingers. My thumb's not super thick at the base or anything. Like I'm very bony, basically. Certainly customized to your heart's content. So once I had all my pins marked, this is all zigzag stitching and serging, by the way. So there's plenty of stretch for everything I've been doing. But I started stitching right sides together from the bottom point, got up to the first pin, stopped right there, and then skipped up to the next pin. So no stitching in between those first 2. Then I stitched that 2 inch length down, skipped the next inch, and finished stitching the entire rest of it. So there should be 2 gaps along the whole thing. Then I folded it in half, and this is where you kind of like tuck it inside itself. So right sides are facing out. You want wrong sides together. I did also open up the seams. It was laying flat on the inside. Don't need to serge this or anything, just lay it flat. And then I lined up where the holes were on the cuff. Now I didn't want to fight with the layers shifting around or like trying to put my thumb through and only going through the first hole and not both of them. So I did some top stitching right along that top seam and then around either edge of the hole. You can do as much or as little of this. It's just kind of a little like final finessing kind of thing. But then that was it as far as adding the hole. You could also do a buttonhole off to the side. Like I wouldn't do it on the seam because there's going to be more bulk there, but if you do it a little further towards the underside of the cuff, that's certainly an option. I'm very, very pleased with how this came out. Ooh, especially once I attached the cuffs to the shirt. So I basted the 2 layers of the cuffs together, then attach it to the end of the sleeve. Then I just did some top stitching on the seam allowance for the cuff, so it's laying towards the sleeve. I don't know if you can really see that. I did the same for the collar. The seam allowance wanted to like flip out, so I did some top stitching, so it's laying nice and flush against the actual like bodice piece instead of against the collar, and then it's helping the collar lay really flat. And I am obsessed with how this came out. I'm so, so happy. Oh my gosh, little Bert, you're so cute. All right, I think he's mad we're not snuggling each other on the couch because not only do I think he's aware of how like crummy I feel, but it's also really crummy outside. So it's just one of those drink a bunch of warm tea and curl up on the couch with your pet and watch a spooky movie type of day, which I think is what we're gonna do after this. But yeah, y'all, I'm very, very pleased with how this came out. I've had some requests over the years to do something like this, and I don't know why it took me so long to finally get around to it, but that is the case with literally everything I ever want to do. Is I feel like I never have time to do the thing, but we're getting better, and I just want to gesture open-handedly all the time just to really rub it in people's faces about how cozy I am now. But I only got to take the time to do this and noodle around with it and share it with y'all because of everyone over on my Patreon. Y'all are the best, and I hope this kind of stuff is helpful, or at least entertaining, maybe. At least you got some sweet Bert footage today, which I know I don't always have him in here because he's often just sleeping by my feet, and I always feel guilty waking him up from a nap, but he seemingly wanted to wedge himself into the video today, and I am happier for it. I would suspect y'all are too, because look at him. All right, on that note, I'm gonna go work on editing this video, and we will see you all back here with another one next Friday. Thank you so much for hanging out. I think he was just licking his nose and my nose happened to be in the vicinity, but that was very sweet. You're very stinky though.